Great to be back after the break. All re-energized to hear about what these ladies are doing for the future of work. First, I thought I'd like to kick off, for each of you to share what you are building and actually what actually brought you to your journey here today as technology founders. I'd also like to use this opportunity to congratulate Agnes on winning an award for AI in recruitment this last past week.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Jennifer, you'd like to start?
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Hope you have a nice break. My name is Jennifer Zhang, and I'm a CEO and co-founder of WIZ.AI. So a lot of people ask, what are we doing for WIZ? Actually, I usually summarize two sectors. One sector is actually we're doing the voice conversational platform for the emerging market. Means like, Taglish, Manglish, Singlish, Bahasa. And those are things we do the, transcribe it, the voice data, and do the automation bots. So this is layer one. Second one's like we organizing this all the voice data and giving the customer insight. So that's actually what we do. Means like, in the phase one, you see a bot actually talking to you with a local language. Second one's, as a business operators, you can see like, all the customer insight in the backend to see like different dialect, what's the customer intention. So that's actually what we're doing. We actually grow around like almost 4 years because our opening company day is actually the Valentine's Day, 2019. So it's very easy to remember. And now like, it's covered 10 different countries. Majority is Southeast Asia and also Latin America. Currently, I have around 270 people in my team and different sector regions. And why actually go to getting the WIZ.AI's journey? Very interesting. I think like before I was actually in the startup journey for a while because I quite lucky. 2011 when I was studying in US and LA, I was actually seeing the whole growing parts of the LA startup ecosystem. At that time, Snapchat just the beginning. We have a lot of like peers there, and we have seen like a lot of like MNC and company, e-commerce companies growing in the LA. Then I was very lucky. First, actually, I own my first project, which has become the company later when I was students, and I organized a lot of events like this. And later, after I graduated, and my company actually almost have 30 people. But however, after 1 or 2 years, I realized actually it become the kind of cash flow business, means like operate in, but didn't really grow well. And I have at that time just have the opportunity and meet some kind of local VC, and he mentioned about like Jennifer, you have networks, you'll be in the ecosystem. Why not you just jump to the VC world? Then I started become VC and also organizing a lot of deals globally. And 2018, I was back in China and actually, delegate one task is actually organizing one fundraising again. Then like, at the period of times, I was very lucky to talking with my two other co-founders, which is actually quite a serial entrepreneur in the tech industry. And we were very passionate about like what do we do in the global deals, and also like some technology especially can serve not for the solo market, which is US, China, but also for emerging market. So that's the reason we actually come to Singapore and explore what we can do. And that times actually we're showing some products we did for like voice, security, all AI related, because also my team's actually quite good at that. So later, like our most actually unexpected is like our accent voice bot is most popular among most of our customers because we're talking most at banks, healthcare. Then we decide to move the whole teams to the voice bot. Then now, like actually, we started a journey to do different countries' language and also different industry applications. Now we have, based on voice, we have the QC products, we have customer engagement products, and we have a lot of solutions based on the different niche of the customer. So that's actually how the journey looks like. Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. So basically, you started off in the light side, moved over to the dark side, became an investor, and then reformed, changed your ways, went back to the right side. Ala, maybe you can share.
Yeah, thank you, Virgie. Hi, my name is Alamanda, and you can call me just Ala. So I started my first line of coding when I was 12 years old. And then I fell in love with technology since then. And then I was building my career in technology, and I landed my journey in Gojek in 2014 as the first VP of product and technology. And at the time, I was building the first 14 products of Gojek. including GoFood. So I beat Food Panda at the time, and then and yeah, like GoPay as well, and the first 14 product. So uh, at the time, like in 2014, I needed to hire like 150 engineers in only like 4 months because Gojek grown massively at the time. So then it was very hard for me to find UI UX designer because in Indonesia in 2014, 2015, when I said I want to hire UI UX, no one knows what is UI UX. So that was very sad. So that's the first problem that I face. Hiring engineers, hiring UI UX business intelligence growth team, it was very hard. And second thing, when I was my last 4 months in Gojek, I jumped to the HR team. So I changed my career to like HR because I realized that people is the key to build a company. And then that was my first time working with engineering background, and for me it was like, oh, it was very different because people doesn't have a structural thinking like us as an engineer. I thought like their thought process is very like it's just messy. So that's the second problem I face, and I think the third problem that I faced was when I was in college. I was being a private tutor, and I love math and physics very much. And one of my students, we learn about physics, and I realized that all my students usually just memorizing the formula. So then I was thinking like all these students doesn't know what is the fundamental things when they learn something. So these three problems brought me to my journey right now, building Binar. So first problem, it was the tactile and scarcity is real. I think in Singapore also. So then we teach coding, we teach software engineering, we teach UI UX, product management, and also we help company to hire our graduates. So we connect our graduates directly to our hiring partner after they graduates, and then also I think this tech education is not only for tech talents, but also, say for example, we have students from different background, like doctor, because they want to be able to have the same thought process like an engineer. So we're not only like teaching about UI UX, but we teach about the thought process of being a designer or like a user experience researcher. So that's also the most important thing. And the last one is how can we change the learning methodology, the existing education system that usually teach people to memorize things. So I think that's what we've been doing, and yeah, it's been an amazing journey. Right now, we have like 8,000 graduates from our bootcamp program, and we have 700,000 app users on our app. So yeah, thank you so much.
Um, Ala is very modest, but in Indonesia, she is known as a child technology prodigy. And yeah, only someone like that I think can like physics, to be honest with you. But thank you for changing the game in an emerging market for technology education. Joan.
Hi, everyone. Very nice to meet all of you. Thank you for making time to be here with us, and obviously Virginia for moderating this panel as well. Very nice to meet you. I'm Joan. I'm the founder and CEO for Thoughtfull. Thoughtfull is a digital mental health company that essentially brings seamless end-to-end care for everyone in the world. I'm kidding. We can't take the whole pie all at once, but we actually do a lot of corporate work. So, a lot of the work that we do are working with, HRs, for example, corporate HR, as well as insurance to bring better accessibility and affordability in the mental health care space. So as you know, mental health care is traditionally not covered by insurance here in Asia. That's something we're changing. And then I think the other aspect as well is many of you might in some way, direct or indirect, have experienced as well. I think mental health care is, while more talked about now post pandemic, is something still very stigmatized and highly fragmented as a market. And so a lot of the work that we do is really fixing the plumbing in the ecosystem to really bring that seamlessness end to end for everyone. Um, it might seem like a very, I guess, organic thing or maybe even random from the outside, but my background's actually very different. So how Thoughtfull came to being was a very organically grown journey. I used to be a banker before this. So I worked in Hong Kong for about 6 years at JP Morgan, and I was managing money for people. And the portfolio was not small. I was in my 20s, but my portfolio was 1.3 billion. It was highly exciting, high octane, compensated not so badly as well. So it was really nice, and I really enjoyed the work that I was doing, and the rush and the game, right? But I think at the end of the day, the mission of mental health care is something that is, you can say, almost like a calling that's 20 years in the making. And I didn't know it at that time, but now that I've been in it for the last 3 years plus, you kind of piece the dots together, and it all makes sense, right? So I think it's really a convergence of a couple of things which brought Thoughtfull into being. I think one of it was the fact that it's very close to my heart. So we have been mental health caregivers for the last more than 20 years now. So back in the late 90s, early 2000s, as you can imagine, no one talks about mental health. It was not a trending hashtag, let's just say. People didn't know what it was. We didn't know what it was. And it was really a journey of trial and error with the family to figure out what was going on. I think one of the biggest struggles that until today we experience in a very real aspect is the fact that because the market is so fragmented, trying to find the right fit, personalized type of care is actually very difficult. Even for highly educated people with the know-how or the means, it sometimes just doesn't exist here in Asia for certain things. And then I think another point was the fact that the sustainability of this journey is actually very tough. There's a lot of resilience from the entire ecosystem surrounding mental health care that's needed, and I think that was something that was very real, and it's always been ever present, right? So for 20 years, we've always been looking for best practices, for answers to a very big problem. Um, and I think I've had the privilege to spend quite a lot of time in various different places. So I'm originally Malaysian, so I don't know if y'all like Malaysians in the house here. Yes, I see some people with hands up. Originally Malaysian, but spent maybe the last like 17 years abroad. So half of it was in North America, and then the other half was in Hong Kong, and then in between I was in France and China as well. And all throughout, you're just picking out all the best practices of what mental health care could be, or is in a different environment. And I think for me, it was very exciting when I was in the US. I'll be giving away my age a bit, but I was there more than 10 years ago. It was a long time. But that was actually when a lot of digital healthcare innovation started. So I mean, Jen was also there when a lot of the development for the LA startup scene started. But literally, your BetterHelps, your Calms, your Headspaces, all of those kind of guys, they came up in like 2010 to 2012. That period was like a golden era. I was excited because I wanted to see these solutions come to Asia for our own usage, obviously. But herein lies the intricacies of healthcare, right? It's highly localized, and from country to country, it's actually a very different type of structure, and it's a different ballgame altogether because healthcare systems differ from every jurisdiction, and so it's good in the sense from a startup perspective, there's defensibility, but it's also bad from a user perspective because then you have all these amazing innovations, but none of them are flowing through as they could, as widely as you'd like. And so I think these were all very prevalent. And here I am, at that time sitting at JP Morgan, who runs the biggest healthcare conference every year on the West Coast with billions of dollars going into healthcare. And I'm like, yo, none of this is affecting the man on the street. And I'm like, there's obviously something broken here, guys. And so that's really how all of the pieces kind of came together. And when I was thinking of, what next? As y'all know, I'm not sure how many of you here have thought about your career in a very deep way, your pathway forward. Is this really what I want to do? Is this going to be my life? Is this, the end? I don't know. So if ever you guys had those kind of questions, I will always encourage you to actually ask those hard questions, sit with them, and then don't be afraid to take a leap, because I think for me I was quite clear that I wanted something more impactful. I wanted something more meaningful. It's great to be doing a lot for a very small set of the population, like the 0.1% of the rich people in the world, or you can use everything that you have picked up and see how vast of an impact you can make. And so I was like, hey, this all the pieces are coming together. It is a calling, and then let's jump into it. And so here we are today, founder and CEO of Thoughtfull. It's been a journey that has been very, very fulfilling. Of course, ups and downs. I'm not gonna lie about this.
And Joan, I think
yeah.
so. I was gonna say, thank you for leaving the dark side and coming
Yeah.
on to the light
I'm
side.
redeeming my soul
Yeah.
here, so
And
we've got a lot of work to do. But
actually,
yeah.
mental health is going to be a recurring topic throughout this whole conference.
Yeah.
We have quite a lot of sessions this afternoon, really talking about building esteem, confidence, leadership, and then tomorrow we have a panel on building resilience for founders, because I think mental health, people only think of mental health when you're sick, but actually maintaining, prime mental health is actually key for all of us who are all founders on this stage.
Yep. It's
Agnes,
wellness. Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
it's a part of everyday life. Actually, shouldn't just be when you're sick. Agnes, may I move on to you?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Virginia. And thank you for all making the time here in Sentosa, such a nice place. Yeah, my name is Agnes Wun, co-founder and CEO of Neufast. My German client will call my startup name called Neufast, whatever you call that. Yeah, so again, welcome. About my journey, in fact, I'm trained as an engineer. In fact, like math and physics are actually my favorite subjects since young. Yeah, somehow I didn't really think about any other subjects. So I did double math, double science for my GCA level under Singapore government MOE scholarship. I came from Hong Kong, and that was 1997. It was like a life-changing moment for all the people in Hong Kong. And yeah, I make a hard decision. I come over on my own, and that's how I started my own journey in Singapore. Yeah, and yeah, right after the GCA level, I excel, and basically I'm a nerd. So
Don't worry, this is the full nerd panel. No worry, no worries, guys. It's fine. Yeah.
it's like I only study during young, so like I mean, except for English, like I really fuck up with my GP. But other than that,
So I think what we have in common is that love of math and physics, which is very strange indeed. But yeah, and so what led you to build Neufast? Actually, what were you doing before, and what was the leap to make you build this AI technology? Yeah.
okay. So like my mind is kind of wired to think about like numbers and formulas, and then we try to make the randomized event into more like predictable event. So even for hiring, like sometimes to a lot of people, it's like random event. And actually, you don't need to do that. Actually, hiring can be quite scientific. And in fact, using psychology, big data, natural language processing, computer vision, you can actually make that random process not a random process. Yeah. So yeah, when I was doing my master's degree in applied mathematics at Imperial College, one of the favorite subjects that I did is actually stochastic process. So I don't know anyone who's done stochastic process, but this is just a special area of mathematics that study or model like random process. Yeah, and using random generator numbers, you can actually like model certain, like you can simulate certain randomness, yeah, in the world that you see. So for hiring, I would say when you put correlation coefficient of things people mention in their work or their traits, the psychologist will tell you, oh, there's a certain correlation between what you mention about you yourself and your work and your colleague and how you deal with certain situations related to how your profile, your personal profile, your personality profile.
And how does it help us hire better?
Yeah, that's the main thing, right? Because all about like how we do the hiring better, taking away the unconscious bias in humans in the hiring process. So like age, the gender, even the accent, the language. Like I'm a native Cantonese speaker, but in an international setting, I have to speak English. But I have certain accent, right? People can straight away pick up. So for AI, there are like all sorts of like state of the art, really, like generative AI, deepfake, etc. That you can actually take away these elements from the data set that we collected before we do data annotation. So what it means is the data annotation done by our psychologists in-house will not take into account all these personal identifiable information. And so that would be more subjective and less biased in that way before we train our AI ML model.
Thank you so much. You know, you've hit on a really good point, and I think let's move on to the next part of our panel. You know, I think each of you has a distinct vision of how the future of work should be. Each of you are leaders in AI, talent, technology, education, mental health. What do you think to each of you is one important value for the future of work? I think Agnes, you kicked us off by saying removing unconscious bias, which I think is very, very powerful. And what do you think is the one thing that the technology that you're building is changing the way we work? Perhaps I can let Ala or Jennifer start off.
Thanks. So I think our mission in the company is actually try to solving the B2C communication issues for emerging countries. And then most of the things we do actually is reinvent the customer journey for our to-be customers. What do we see actually in the emerging market? There is two type of opportunity and also the pain point you can see. So number one, type one is like we call the elephants, which is the banks, governments. Actually, they have the ways serve the public or serve their customers. But now, like after COVID, all the engagement was reinvent. And previously, a lot of channels they didn't really aware just because of the cost, maybe the structures, operations issues. Then, they actually leave the voice data or voice engagement out. So, what do we try to bring it back? And also offer more like cost efficiency way. That's actually one part. We're solving some elephants, transformation issue. And second one is actually the most exciting part we see is like emerging market like Gojek, Grab, Lazada, Shopee, was some of our customers. What they do is actually when they grow so fast, as you mentioned, 200 people in, so hard to hire. So the case is we see is a lot of customer we serve, maybe multiple countries. When they actually grow 10 times, it's so hard to hiring the customer service people. And the turnover rate actually is 50% every year. And they cannot train that. So we have one tool actually is enable them to train the basic questions and train for the sensitive words and all the best practice. So that case I think is like for the growing, we call digital natives, actually we empower them to grow faster. So that's actually two values we bring for the elephants and deers. We call deers can run faster for the digital native. So that's actually, I think we do. And second part is actually the we find is actually quite amazing parts. Like, we enable some of the possibilities. Means like, I can give you a case when we're doing the campaigns. Like previously, one of the logics, like, I need to hire in 200 people's team, do that. But like, you cannot hire them for one campaign and let them run. It's very hard for the November 11, I think, coming for the weekend, right? So, but for us, we're actually using usage driven. Means like, one day you can call 2 million outreach for the merchant and finish that close one day. That's actually the most difference. Actually, when we people at the traditional way to operation and call out, or with the digital way, AI ways to actually, as much as possible, to the coverage and touch points and collect the data for you to sense is actually the right campaign or not right campaign. So that's actually a lot of things when we drive forward, actually giving a lot of sense about how to automate it, all the channels, how to automate it all smartly with different channels. And last part, like more structuralized with the data you collect to understanding your customers.
Thank you. So reinventing the consumer journey and helping both elephants and deers solve pain points in scaling workforces.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ala?
Yeah, I think for me, like what I said, my experience working with non-engineering background, it was very hard for me to to adapt with them. So then I thought like having the thought process that is very structural is very important. And in Binar, we also serve B2B clients. We train their employees like the biggest banks in Indonesia, like BCA, Bank Mandiri. We train them and we with this engineering thought process, and there are a lot of framework and methodology from tech side that can be implemented in other side of division, say for example agile working and stuff like that. So I think uh, also like right now, like being an HR, it's not only require you to hire and then do all the legal paperwork stuff, but it requires people to crunch data more. To be able to increase the productivity of the team, we need to first having a metrics, having at least track the data, and then how can we improve this again by crunching the data. So I think data analytics is skills that everyone should have in the future and current workforce. So I think um, this technology skills is not only um, skills that we taught before, like coding and stuff, but it can be implemented in all the workforce, including like being a finance now. You also need to be able to crunch data with Python and things like that. So yeah, I think that's from my side, Reggie.
And Ala, because, right, I mean, I think having a digital skills mindset for the digital economy is key, right, in any country. But what are the unique challenges that Binar is trying to solve in an emerging market, in a developing country like Indonesia?
Yeah, I think the awareness of having digital skills is still very low. Even like now, the technologies is there already. Like we have GoPay. Like even the small medium enterprises now has to be able to accept payment from GoPay and all these digital payments, right? But again, the awareness of like I need to have this digital skills is very low. So that's why like in Indonesia, the government also push this digital skills a lot. Like every minister now has their own budget to train people to take digital class. So that's a good thing about my country. Yeah. So the government really spend budget on upskilling people to have at least like digital literacy.
Absolutely. Joan?
Remind me the question again. Values and
Underlying your work in mental health, what do you think is a core value that you see for the future of work, and what are you doing, to enable that?
I think for actually that it seems like there's a common thread here, but I think when it comes to the one value for the future of work, and it comes up in many different formats, it's actually inclusion in its entire in its entire form, and not just the buzzword of DEI, and what do I mean by that, and what are we doing on our part in mental health to really drive inclusion, right? I think the future of work it fundamentally has changed, especially for mental health, and I'll tell you how. Because when I started all these conversations with corporates and all of that before the pandemic, I did a lot of groundwork, right, before jumping into this. A lot of it was, yes, well-being is very important, blah blah blah. Let's run a workshop or webinar, and then that will be as far as the KPI of an HR person or even an insurer would be, right? If it's insurance, they'll be like, yeah, we cover it, but actually you can claim maybe $1,000 for the entire year, and it comes with all the caveats, right? It's not really part of your actual coverage, and so I think that there was uh, a very different take on it, and how things have fundamentally changed in the last 2.5 years, and we feel it, right? And it's the tailwinds that's behind our sales right now, is the fact that inclusion in its total sense, so not just more diversity of gender, more diversity of nationalities and cultures and all of that, but also of the acceptance of human beings working in the workforce. That is what's going to drive the future of work. The acceptance that at any one point we all have our daily stresses, and it is okay to be engaging with it, is actually something that has shifted the conversations a lot. Because now the conversation that we have is the fact that companies actually want to invest in it. How do we actually put mental health infrastructure in place? How do we actually have true coverage for it?
And how does Thoughtfull actually provide that
Yeah.
coverage?
So, for example, I'll start with the affordability and the accessibility first. We are the first mental health startup in the region to actually embed our offering into the insurance policy. So it is not a nice to have, hey, we have all these value added services, but then you actually have to still pay for it. We actually worked with AIA and actually came up with something that says, hey, if you're going to buy this policy, everything's covered end-to-end mental health care, and we're offered in that. And I think that really changes the conversation on things, because mental health is not an optionality that's nice to have. It's a fundamental right. And that's really what we're driving to. It's the entire region, right? And so I think that's on the one side of things. On the other side, what does that mean for people like you and I, right? We're all working in different companies. We're all maybe, buying our own insurance policies and things like that, and engaging in our mental health. Essentially, when we work with corporates, they may or may not have something in place. We go in, we basically become their partner in well-being, and we drive the entire well-being rollout end to end, everything from preventive care to curative care and beyond. So for us, everything's done through our suite of products on Thoughtfull Chat. So we have a mobile app that actually all of you can download now as well. In the spirit of inclusion, it's not just for corporates. If you want, you can also download it as a consumer client. And essentially, it's the one-stop platform for you to access end-to-end care. Everything from self-serve tools, progress tracking, to our algorithms actually find you your best fit coach. For lack of a better word, it's a bit like the Tinder of mental health in a way. We find you your best fit. If the chemistry is not great, feel free to change. And you can text an audio message anytime, anywhere, and they basically check in asynchronously within the day itself. So we do all that and then some for corporates as well. So yeah, I think inclusion in its total sense is something that is going to underlie how the way we work in the future.
Thank you. And Agnes, I think you talked about, removing unconscious bias in hiring, right? As a core value. Can you talk about how your technology is unique in helping HRs, I think, to do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. The question is how we do that, right? And how differentiated we are compared to our competitor. And we are quite glad that we filed the patent earlier this year. That patent basically is to really do the PII reduction from video recording submitted by job seekers. And through our data science methodology, system and methods, we basically take away the biases factors in the raw data before we process them and score them, basically.
And it complements the interviewer, or does it replace the interviewer?
Well, we do actually provide an extra layer of scientific like
Guidance?
analysis. Well, because what we are doing basically is turning the audio in different languages into text in transcription. And through the transcription, we do a second layer of R&D, which is mapping the phrase and then the Q&A into our competencies definition that is well defined by psychologists. Yeah. So what we are doing basically is giving the data for the HR to make more informed hiring decisions. And so without
beyond just a subjective view, basically.
Yeah, so you have the full audit trial from start to end of receiving a CV to matching the CV with the job description using natural language processing. And then you do some scientific scoring based on the metrics that is set by the HR department and by the hiring manager. And then at the end, you map it with psychology. So you basically need to map the person's psychology and also their skills and competencies with the role.
And I find that very powerful, right? Because I think it touches back on actually Joan's point about inclusion. When you remove bias and you're matching competence with psychology and you're moving subjective bias, right?
And
I
the
think
extra layer is that we do 9 languages right now, and we are expanding into European languages. So these are areas that like our competitor don't touch on. They always focus on Fortune 500 English-speaking countries, like those banks in the States. But what we are doing is we are serving people who are in the emerging market, like in Southeast Asia, who speak a lot of dialects, like Tagalog in Philippines, or like in Indonesia, they speak Javanese. So these are the requests that we get from our client.
Understood. And hopefully the outcome is more inclusion.
Yes, because when you allow people to speak in their mother tongue, they are more comfortable speaking in front of a stressful situation like job interviews.
Yeah, so English
Right.
doesn't become the bias, actually. That's really powerful. Thank you, Agnes. Now, to wrap up, right, ladies, literally one sentence each from each of you as to, do you think your role as a female founder has influenced the way you built your company? One sentence about how being a female founder has actually changed the way you play the game.
Okay, that one's actually, I thought before, actually is a good question. So I think I just make my company, a tech company, more human-like, more human touch. That's actually the job I need to do. Means that most time when you tech people speak of fancy stuff, now facing to the customer, how to actually deliver message more human touch. Internally, when they manage companies a very military way, in a tech way, but you jump in actually giving some more idea, like how you harmonize the whole teams as a nice culture. Yeah.
Thank you. The minister earlier on said that women actually, more women should actually be in roles, right? Developing algorithms, etc., to bring in that more human touch. Actually, Ala, one sentence about how your role as a woman is changing the way you play the game.
Yeah, I think I do agree. So in Binar, one sentence is we're humanizing humans.
I also remember a
Coming
conversation.
from an engineer, I don't know, with numbers and one zeros, really. I love it.
Yep. And I think, Ala, I remember a conversation we had actually, a couple of years ago when you actually said that the types of products that you sell in terms of technology education actually shape the user base. And I remember you telling me, I think is that when you sell more engineering products, you get more men. But if you sell more, what was it? Business intelligence, product management.
UI UX product management, yes. And we grew our students, our women students, from 10% to 40% this year in 4 years.
And but that was because of a very deliberate way of showcasing the product, of shaping the products you sell, actually.
I think we never created a women special class only for women. Instead, we hired more facilitators. So right now we have 50% female facilitators, and all the students said that they got inspired to be an engineer because they saw more women now in the tech industry. So then that's the reason why they want to jump into this male dominated industry. So by doing that, by increasing the numbers of women facilitators, now we grew up to 40% women students this year.
Thank you, Ella. Joan, one sentence of how being a lady.
I think at the end of the day, male or female, right? You just want to do good work and you want to deliver on your mission. I think perhaps as a function of being female led, we're more thoughtful in how we build things out, pun intended. And I think a lot of it goes into just the way things are being done, right? And I'm not generalizing for anyone here, but I think the whole idea of do first and then of course tell, rather than tell first and then figure out how to do. I think it's a very different aspect to the whys, the hows, and the what's that we're driving to, and that seeps into the entire structure. Because if I can sum up how I guess a worldview of how I look at things are run, you go back to the 5 Ps, right? In startups or in companies, literally you have people, you have the philosophy behind that drives the people, and then you have product performance, and of course the process that you put in place to drive all of that. And the first 2 Ps are probably the biggest determinants of how the rest of the Ps come in. People and philosophy totally drives how your process is put in place, the product that you build, and the performance that you drive for, and your success metric that you hold yourself by. And I think that's definitely by whether unconscious or conscious, is going to be influenced by the fact that I'm a female.
Thank you, Joan. That's beautiful, beautifully said. We also notice the mental health space, even though mental health is for everyone. But when I look at mental health platforms, the data, 70 to 80% of users are usually women. So women are actually driving the revolution in mental health care. And Agnes, finally, right? How has being a woman shaped your journey in building tech?
Okay. In fact, I don't really see myself that way, like women leading a man or man team in the product development cycle for product market fit. In fact, I think we are all in it. It's like we are one population, right? Why do you need to segregate people like that? I mean, it's we shouldn't. Yeah. And what else? We try to think it like, okay, our client actually expect us to deliver things that are non-biased, and that is actually a request by it's a user requirement actually. So for us, we're trying to meet our client expectation in terms of the product itself. Yeah, to to make sure that the product is not biased. So this is actually a user requirement.
And I love that response. So basically, you're saying it's my job actually to take gender completely even out of the equation. Love that.
Because this is actually from Swire.
No. I believe you. I believe, yes. Follow the client always. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your vision of the future of work, and thank you for flying in actually to be here with us.